Chapter 201, Day 1320. As time passed, the Yue State I established gradually took control of the entire forest. The process was smooth, free of any bloody wars. This was all thanks to witchcraft. My students used witchcraft to heal and help the natives, gaining their trust. Eventually, these large and small tribes fell under my banner. However, civilizing them would take generations of effort, and results were not yet visible. My students stayed behind in those tribes, becoming their leaders. Day 3763. It had been almost 10 years, and the North was still at war, likely to continue for a long time. However, because the Yue State was barren, no one came to our side. Civilization efforts were also showing initial results, as at least everyone was now wearing clothes. Day 3764. I felt that my martial prowess had reached a peak, and I had no idea how to improve further. It was so annoying. Day 3765. I was so happy because Xiaozhao told me she was pregnant again. Ever since giving birth to Xiaozhao, Xiaozhao had not conceived again, making me wonder why it was so difficult. Yet, she was finally pregnant, and I was overjoyed. Xiaozhao, you were going to have a younger brother or sister. Day 4191. Fuck. The North had finally reached its hands into our Yue State. Xiaozhao had been captured by them. I had to rescue her. Day 4193. The person from the North was terrifyingly powerful, and dozens of my wizards were nearly wiped out. Fortunately, Xiaozhao stepped in at the end. Yet why did Xiaozhao have a snake's tail? Had I been in love with a snake all this time? I needed to think this through. Oh Wujun, what was there to even think about? Even Su Xian could be with Lady White, so what did you amount to? Day 4194. Xiaozhao hugged me and cried uncontrollably, thinking I would reject her once I knew her true form. I told her I wouldn't, because I loved Xiaozhao for who she was, human, ghost, demon, or monster. It didn't matter as long as she loved me and I loved her. Fortunately she was pregnant, otherwise, seeing how touched she was, she might have revealed her true form to fight me for 300 rounds. Day 4198. Although I didn't mind, my subjects deeply minded Xiaozhao's identity. Even when Xiaozhao played with others, children threw stones at her and called her a snake demon's child. Some even came up to suggest that I kill Xiaozhao and Xiaozhao as sacrifices to the heavens. I knew this could not continue. Swayed by such thoughts, these uncultured people might actually do something irreversible. I had to do something to reverse their mindset. Day 4239. The plan went smoothly, and the entire Yue State's perception of Xiaozhao improved drastically. Without hesitation, I simply wrote down the plot of the first installment of Chinese Paladin from my past life, turning it into our country's legend. Xiaozhao became the descendant of Nuwa, and our people of Yue were all descendants of Nuwa. Just like that, they viewed both Xiaozhao and me as deities. They were the children of gods. Who would ever refuse such a magnificent bloodline origin? Day 4246. I proposed to Xiaozhao. When we first got married, there was hardly any ceremony at all. We had just tied the knot in a blur. I personally crafted an Ouroboros ring out of gold, set with a precious red ruby. I slipped it onto her finger myself. She was overjoyed. If she wasn't pregnant, she might have wanted to fight me for another 1,000 rounds. Then again, why was this pregnancy taking so long? Being a frontline warrior every day was getting a bit tiring. Day 4247. Xiaozhao and I held a grand wedding. Day 4750. Xiaozhao died. She died in childbirth. Why? Clearly everything was getting better. Why did it have to be this way? Why must heaven treat me like this? Why wasn't I trained in medicine? If I knew how to deliver a baby, could I have saved her? Why? Day 4780. Our son was now a month old. Yet, apart from the very first day, I never looked at him again. I hated this son because Xiaozhao died because of him. I even wanted to kill him. However, Xiaozhao begged me with her dying breath to take good care of him. So I couldn't do it, but I didn't give him a name either. He could be called whatever he wanted. Day 4821. I remained in seclusion, ignoring all worldly affairs. After the person who came from the north to kidnap Xiaozhao died, they left behind Central Plains martial arts manuals. These manuals stated that if I could cultivate to the celestial realm, I would gain the ability to bring the dead back to life. Then I could resurrect Xiaozhao. I began to immerse myself in martial arts cultivation. I finally realized that I must have reached the critical moment of the 3 flowers gathering atop the crown. Xiaozhao, wait for me. Day 5130. I broke through and reached a brand new realm. At the same time, a woman arrived from the Nanzhao kingdom, demanding to take back Xiaozhao's corpse. I refused, so she attacked me. She couldn't defeat me. Originally, I intended to kill her. Then she revealed her true form, which was also a human head and a snake body. My subjects immediately knelt and shouted praises to Nuwa. A momentary trance flashed through my eyes. Xiaozhao, have you been reincarnated and come back for me? Day 5131. The woman was not Xiaozhao, but her younger sister, Xiaozhao. As expected, the dead could not be resurrected. I fell into grief once again. Xiaozhao once again proposed taking back Xiaozhao's body, which I naturally refused. She simply refused to leave and stayed put. To prevent her from causing trouble, I directly enslaved her using goo-worms, meaning I could kill her the moment she made any suspicious move. Day 5286. Xiona seemed to really like Xiaozhao. Then again, Xiaozhao and Xiaozhao did look alike in some ways, especially their eyes. She must have regarded Xiaozhao as her mother. My son had also grown up and was held in Xiao's arms. She told me to look, but I refused. Day 5821. Because of Xiao's arrival, the Yue State returned to its normal development track. Many matters were handed over to Xiao to manage. As for me, I continued my cultivation so I could reach the celestial realm sooner and resurrect Xiaozhao. Day 6170. Xiona was elected as the king of Yue, with Xiao acting as regent. Naturally, I had abdicated. Or rather, I had abdicated long ago. External developments no longer concerned me. If Xiao hadn't brought me food every day and told me about things outside, I wouldn't have even known what was happening in the world. Day 6310. A statue of me was built outside, and I became the witch god, the faith of the Yue State. At the same time, my body seemed able to absorb this faith, accelerating my cultivation speed, which made me very happy. Therefore, I asked Xiao to help me spread the faith so I could cultivate to the celestial realm as soon as possible. Day 11521. Why? Why must it be this way? We were just a single step away. Why couldn't I cross the threshold after all this time? Where on earth was I falling short? Xiaozhao. Day 12128. I succeeded. I finally succeeded. So that was how it was. Day 13400. The Tao of Heaven. It was all a lie. Ha 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 ha. It was all a lie. In the end, no one could live. No, I cannot. I cannot forget you. Xiaozhao, I love you. This was the very last page of the diary. Beyond that were only a series of blurred and indistinct marks. Wang Suan had no idea what was written there. So that means, this witch god, or rather Wujun, was also a transmigrator just like me. Chapter 202. This diary contained an overwhelming amount of information. Wang Suan organized his thoughts and summarized several key points. First, the witch was a human named Wujun, who was a transmigrator just like him. Second, exotic demons were transformed humans, or rather, people who cultivated into that state. For unknown reasons, they were rejected by the Tao of Heaven. However, it was certain that exotic demons were on the same level as the celestial realm, or perhaps even higher. Third, the witch seemed to have encountered something near the end, leading him to believe he had been deceived. It even caused him to lose some kind of consciousness. That was why he kept saying he could not forget Xiaozhao. The information seemed sparse, but its implications were massive. Exotic demons, or entities commonly recognized as gods by people, were actually formed through human cultivation. This single revelation alone could shatter the mental state of countless practitioners. Gods used to be human? This was completely unacceptable to many. However, Wang Suan felt it was no big deal. In his unpretentious modern view, gods were originally created by humans. What concerned him most, though, was what the witch had ultimately encountered. Why did he end up becoming like this? And finally, there was the message the black-robed person, Xiao from the diary, was told to pass on to him. The more you gained, the more you lost. What on earth did that mean? Complex information rushed in like a flowing stream, washing away the surface froth of the truth. Yet the truth was buried too deeply, allowing only a tiny glimpse to be seen. Wang Suan left. Before departing, he destroyed everything within the witch god temple. He didn't even keep the ring. Since it was a token of affection from the witch, he buried it right on the spot as repayment for the 12 sources of the Tao of Heaven gifted to him. However, he kept the diary so he could study it more carefully. Upon returning to the Hasha stronghold, Wang Suan was greeted with enthusiastic cheers. This place had effectively become the capital of southern Yue. The great Qian officials in southern Yue had also been captured and locked up one by one. Your Highness, what should we do with these people? Pama asked. Looking at the trembling great Qian officials, Wang Suan smiled. Kill them. Keeping them around is just a waste of food. The great Qian officials were terrified. "No, Your Highness. This has nothing to do with us. We didn't resist, please don't kill us. We can give you money, money." "Ah!" A scream echoed out. Wang Suan walked away without looking back. He was not interested in anything they had to say. Wang Suan did not leave immediately. A few days later, a ceremony would be held here to officially crown him as the king of southern Yue. Otherwise, many people wouldn't realize that southern Yue had changed hands. At the same time, it needed to be announced that southern Yue's faith had shifted from the witch to Suantian. Suantian was Wang Suan himself. Only then would the power of faith from the people of southern Yue flow into him. Next, he had statues manufactured so that every household would pray to his likeness from then on. Only by completing these steps could southern Yue truly fall into his hands in practice. However, this was only temporary. After all, this was an uncivilized frontier region, and it would require a long period of education to change. Once Wang Suan returned, he would send more people over to manage the territory. 3 days later, the coronation ceremony took place. Representatives from all the strongholds were sent to attend as observers. Starting from the base of the mountain, Wang Suan walked step by step to the highest point. Once he took his seat at the very top, the coronation was instantly completed. Today, Wang Suan specifically wore a ceremonial robe, with 4 people behind him helping to lift the long train. Pama stood quietly behind them, watching Wang Suan's back. The cheers on both sides were deafening. However, not everyone was happy. For instance, people from the stronghold where the former Grand Wizard resided felt differently. Because of the Grand Wizard's existence, their lives had been much better than those of ordinary wizard strongholds. Now that Wang Suan had seized power, their living standards plummeted instantly. Therefore, they were the ones who despised Wang Suan the most. Yet they were helpless. Wang Suan was simply too powerful. Even the 12 Grand Wizards were no match for him, so how could this group possibly be opponents? That was until a certain person appeared. At the back of the crowd, in a corner where others paid no attention, a group of people gathered together. They were members from the strongholds of the former 12 Grand Wizards and the most loyal believers of the witch god. Then, they knelt on one knee toward a figure shrouded in a black robe. "Divine child, everyone is arranged. Please give your instructions." "Very well." A hoarse and gloomy voice came from beneath the black robe. "Act according to the plan. Today, that damn fake god must perish right here. The witch god will remember your contributions." Hearing the words witch god, fanatical light erupted in everyone's eyes. "To die in service to the witch god, we will not hesitate even 1,000 times. We will not hesitate even 1,000 times." "Very well." The black-robed person nodded with satisfaction. "Then go. I will stay here and celebrate your triumphant return." Receiving their orders, everyone stood up and dispersed into the crowd. The black-robed person glanced briefly, paid no further attention, and turned to leave. A gust of wind from an unknown direction blew up a corner of the robe, revealing the lower half of the person's body. The color of those legs was pitch black, and the skin tone was unlike that of an ordinary person. Yet upon closer inspection, that wasn't skin at all. Those pitch black, glossy surfaces were clearly patches of snake scales. Back in the ceremony area, a figure suddenly rushed out from the bustling crowd and dropped to their knees in front of Wang Suan. "My lord, just kill me. I don't want to live anymore." Pama's expression changed, and she quickly stepped forward to drive the person away. "What are you doing? Are you looking for death?" As she spoke, she signaled the guards to step forward and drag the man away. However, at this moment, more people rushed in. Among them, several individuals carried a stretcher and placed it right in front of Wang Suan. "You people broke into our homes, raped my daughter, and even tried to kill her. Are you even human? I have already surrendered. What more do you want? Things like this never happened when the witch god was around. You are all heretical demons, absolute heretical demons." With that, the man stood up and charged toward Wang Suan. Not even the guards were able to stop him. Wang Suan watched all of this coldly. The fact that the guards couldn't stop him meant this man was no ordinary civilian and definitely had ulterior motives. Sure enough, when he rushed in front of Wang Suan, a blade directly unholstered from the man's hand. Yet the tip of the blade stopped right in front of Wang Suan, motionless. The man widened his eyes in disbelief, unable to understand why he couldn't move. The next moment, the man began to wail in agonizing pain as his entire body was compressed, ultimately being crushed into a pool of meat paste. Many people vomited upon seeing this bloody scene. Their faces turned deathly pale. Murder. What kind of bullshit Suantian is this? He just wants to bully us UE people. Everyone take up your weapons and charge with me. Let's rebel against him today. The witch god will protect us. Charge. Instantly, a crowd brandishing various weapons surged out from the gathering. Chapter 203. Drop your weapons. Surrender and you will be spared. Pama shouted. Although she was now Wang Suan's person, she was also a native of southern Yue. Even though the competition between the various strongholds in southern Yue was brutal, they were still compatriots. Many of the people charging over were women and children, and she couldn't bear to strike them down. Yet those people seemed to have gone completely mad. Even with butchering blades hacking into their flesh, they remained fearless of death. Before dying, someone even used their teeth to bite off a guard's ear raw. The scene was exceptionally bloody and chaotic. Finally, swish! Amidst the chaos, a stray spear from unknown origins pierced straight through the child of a surrounding innocent bystander. Ah! The child thrashed their limbs frantically, trying to break free. However, it was all in vain. Ah! My child! A piercing, miserable scream rang out. A woman rushed in front of the little one, hugging the dead child and weeping bitterly. Fight them to the death. They don't care about us at all and want to exterminate us. No, it's not like that. Pama wanted to shout and explain. She clearly saw that someone had picked up a guard's spear and intentionally murdered those civilians. They hadn't done it. Yet no one listened to a word she said. At this point, the individuals were completely swept up by the mob. Even those who didn't want to get involved were pushed to the absolute front lines of the conflict. By now, the guards could no longer distinguish friend from foe. They could only hack down anyone in sight. No! Those innocent people were simply hacked to death by the indiscriminate blades of both sides. Yet who cared? Those who did care had probably already died alongside them in this chaos. Pama wore a look of utter anxiety. What should she do? What could she do? Right, there was someone who could stop this. She turned her gaze toward Wang Suan. Wang Suan could definitely put an end to this tragedy. My lord. Wang Suan stopped Pama from continuing. Don't speak, just watch quietly. Pama was stunned. Confusion clouded her eyes. Why? Why wasn't Wang Suan making a move? Perhaps Wang Suan himself wasn't entirely clear on that question either. However, he simply didn't want to act. It felt as though everything happening right now was just as it should be. They wanted to rebel, so they would be killed. Then a lot of people would die. These were all choices they made for themselves. Why should he intervene? To save people? They weren't anyone special to him. Why on earth should he save them? It was meaningless. Instead, watching these people slaughter each other actually gave Wang Suan a tiny hint of boredom. As more and more people joined the rebellious army, both voluntarily and involuntarily, the pressure on the guards mounted. My lord, we can't hold them off, let's run. The guard leader said to Pama. Pama turned around, wanting to ask Wang Suan for his opinion. However, Wang Suan ignored her and simply continued to watch everything unfold. Seeing this, Pama was torn with internal conflict. She could stay behind, but these guards didn't need to stay here and wait for death with her. You guys go first. I'll stay behind to accompany His Highness. Then take care, my lord. The guard leader turned around and left with the remaining guards. Do not assume they were particularly loyal. They were composed of people whose strongholds had just been wiped out. Many had become guards only under the coercion of Wang Suan's overwhelming might. They were fine fighting easy battles, but facing a situation like this, to be honest, he didn't want to slaughter his own compatriots. Since Pama gave the word, leaving right then was for the best. With the guards ceasing their resistance, the crowd advanced at an even faster pace than before. Eventually, all the guards retreated completely. The people of southern Yue then surrounded Wang Suan and Pama. The divine child was right. The witch god had intervened, and this damn Suantian must be dead by now. Otherwise, why would he remain indifferent when they had fought right up to his face? Just as they raised their weapons, preparing to make their next move, Pama stepped forward. Don't be rash. What do you want? Just name it, and if it's within our power, we will surely do it. A commotion rippled through the crowd. Soon, someone shouted angrily, I want my dead family back to life, can you do that? That's right, can you? Pama's expression turned ugly. That's impossible. Then there's nothing more to say. We didn't do anything, yet this Qian person, along with you, a running dog of Qian, destroyed our homes and families. By what right? I want you to pay for this blood debt with your own blood. For southern Yue. For the witch god. For the witch god. They had gone mad. Everyone had lost their minds. Couldn't these people see that, given their level of strength, they stood zero chance against Wang Suan? Go to hell, great Qian scum. A person picked up a spear and lunged straight at Wang Suan. Die. Go to hell. With the first person came a second. Weapon after weapon attacked toward Wang Suan in rapid succession. No. Pama screamed. Yet no one paid her any heed. Furthermore, someone was swinging a blade right at her. Oh no! Pama almost forgot that she was also hated by these people. After dodging a few attacks, Pama's stamina began to flag. She was a shamaness skilled in goo poisons and medicine, making her body stronger than an ordinary person's. However, that didn't mean her martial prowess was high. In close combat, she was no match for ordinary people. Slash! In an unguarded moment, Pama's foot was grazed by a blade. It's over. That was Pama's first thought. Then several flashes of blade light appeared, cutting off all her routes of evasion. Am I going to die? Pama closed her eyes. Death might not be so bad after all. At least she would get to see her grandfather and younger brother. And her father and mother, the whole family would be reunited. Clang! Pama opened her eyes. She saw a single hand blocking in front of her, shattering all incoming blades, swords, and clubs into pieces. The scene fell into a momentary silence. Wang Suan swept a cold gaze across everyone around him. No matter how much you slaughter each other amongst yourselves, I don't care, nor do I wish to manage it. I didn't come here to be your so-called king. I want your faith, your loyalty, and for you to obediently stay right here. At least for this past month or so, I haven't killed many people, showing you immense mercy, but... Wang Suan shook his head, raised an eyebrow, and slowly let out. Why do you refuse to cherish it? His words were like a cold wind, blowing away the heated fervor in the hearts of those around him. The passionate blaze in many people's eyes was instantly extinguished, giving rise to thoughts of retreat. Seeing this, the instigators hidden in the crowd quickly shouted. He's just putting on a front, don't be fooled. This Qian person is all show and no substance. The witch god has already returned. That so-called Suantian has been killed, everyone charge. Charge! A group of people rushed forward once more. Even those who were still hesitating followed suit. Yet very soon, the madness on their faces vanished. It was replaced entirely by looks of utter bewilderment. Why can't I move anymore? It hurts so much. I feel like my chest is about to explode. Ah! Splat, splat, crackling and popping. Within a radius of 30 feet around Wang Suan, people burst open one after another like blooming fireworks. Only, what splashed out was not brilliant sparks, but crimson blood. The onlookers standing beyond 30 feet were frozen in sheer terror. As for those within 30 feet, one stood dazed, while another smiled. Chapter 204. Wang Suan left the chaos at the scene entirely for Pama to handle. The coronation ceremony didn't need to be postponed for another day. Treading across the sticky pool of blood, Wang Suan walked step by step to the highest point and took his seat on the throne representing southern Yue. This scene was both bloody and mesmerizing. Indeed, power was always accompanied by bloodshed. Wang Suan had initially thought that by killing their leaders and intentionally manufacturing a blood plague, he could change their faith by saving them and peacefully conquer Yue State. It looks like I still thought things were too simple. Wang Suan sighed to himself. But it didn't matter. Since the soft approach wouldn't work, he would resort to force. Originally, he didn't want to use violence, because killing too many people would significantly reduce the power of faith they could provide. That did not align with his interests. However, if some people were still unwilling to submit, he wouldn't mind sharpening his butcher's blade. Yet these were all minor matters. The most important thing was still his cultivation progress. He looked inward at his own body. The progress of his primordial spirit was also rapid. According to this pace, he estimated it would take only 30 years to reach the celestial realm. Right now, he was invincible below the celestial realm. Even if a celestial realm expert arrived, relying on his degree of alignment with the Tao of Heaven and the blessing of the living being's faith, the other party wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Even if the imperial court sends people now, they won't be able to do anything to me. Then again, that wasn't necessarily true. If he could utilize faith, someone within the court certainly could as well. Just because he hadn't discovered it before didn't mean it didn't exist. Rumor had it that deep within the imperial palace, there were formidable experts. This was the very reason Great Qian had always stood tall and unfallen. Looking at it this way, it's still a bit slow. Wang Suan was flexing a bit here. Countless people didn't even possess a single source of the Tao of Heaven, failing to touch the threshold of the celestial realm after decades of cultivation. Yet he was actually complaining that he was too slow? Still, one couldn't entirely blame him for being dissatisfied. With 12 additional sources of the Tao of Heaven, his speed was only twice as fast as before. It seems the higher the level, the more sources of the Tao of Heaven are needed to accelerate the pace. It looked like he needed to find more Sons of Destiny and seize their sources of the Tao of Heaven. Of course, if he could encounter exotic demons like the witch, that would be ideal. Gaining multiple sources at once would be the best-case scenario. However, Wang Suan knew that was unlikely to happen again. His trip here this time hadn't been to destroy the witch. He simply didn't have that kind of strength. He had only wanted to use the blood plague to seize the other party's power of faith and control the Yue State. Yet he never expected that in the final battle, the witch would actually self-detonate. Killing the Grand Wizard and delivering the sources of the Tao of Heaven right into his hands was bizarre. No matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't make sense of such a strange occurrence. If he were to pray for the Buddhas on the western Lingshan mountain to go crazy like the witch and self-detonate to give him sources of the Tao of Heaven, the probability of that happening was virtually zero. It would be far more reliable to go look for the Sons of Destiny in this world instead. Suddenly, a figure descended from the sky, landing right in front of Wang Suan. Draped in a black robe, their appearance was obscured. Wang Suan's expression remained calm, showing no sign of surprise. In fact, the moment the black-robed person entered his perceptual range, he had already known. "You appear before me like this, aren't you afraid I'll kill you?" Wang Suan asked with keen interest. "How does it seem like you aren't surprised by my appearance at all?" The black-robed person's tone carried a hint of astonishment. He had expected Wang Suan to be startled. "You were the one who had those people cause trouble during my coronation ceremony, weren't you?" Wang Suan said indifferently, hiding behind a crowd whispering, and later inciting them to attack me. "You knew all along? Then why didn't you stop me?" The black-robed person's tone shifted uncomfortably. Wang Suan chuckled. "Why should I stop you? If they want to throw their lives away, let them die. What the hell does it have to do with me?" The black-robed person fell silent. If his expression could be seen, it would likely be extremely ugly right now. He had thought this hand of his would make Wang Suan miserable. Yet the other party didn't care in the least. "Damn great Qian people, you truly don't care about us at all. Don't sound so righteous and noble." Wang Suan's face showed mockery. "If you truly cared about these people, you wouldn't have incited them to attack me, because attacking meant certain death. You don't care much about whether they live or die either, do you?" The black-robed person burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha. Indeed, seeing is believing. I heard before that the Prince of Zhenbei's heir, Wang Suan, shone brightly in Luodu, eloquent and daring beyond measure. Seeing you today, it's truly the case. Spit it out. Since you came here, you surely aren't just looking to chat with me, right?" Wang Suan said nonchalantly. The black-robed person's body stiffened. Even now, he felt as though he was being led around by the nose by Wang Suan, a sensation that didn't feel good at all. This was completely different from what he had imagined beforehand. However, he quickly pulled himself together and said calmly, "Your Highness Wang Suan, I'm here to help you." "Help me?" Wang Suan acted as if he had heard some hilarious joke. "You incited others to rebel and caused chaos at my coronation ceremony, and you call that helping me?" "Naturally." The black-robed person didn't care in the least. These people were all potential rebels, otherwise, they wouldn't have been persuaded by me to assassinate you. "I'm helping your highness root out these potential sources of instability, isn't that a good thing?" This son of a bitch actually made it sound quite logical. Wang Suan narrowed his eyes at him, the corners of his mouth curving upward into a dangerous arc. "Aren't you afraid I might get hurt by these people?" "Naturally not, since your highness could eliminate the 12 grand wizards, you certainly wouldn't be harmed by the likes of them." "Very well." Wang Suan found it increasingly interesting. "Since you're helping this heir so much, I am truly and sincerely grateful. Tell me, what reward do you want from me?" The black-robed person shook his head. "I dare not ask for a reward, this subordinate merely wishes to share your highness's burdens." "Oh, and how do you plan to share my burdens?" "I believe that after your highness conquers the Yue State, you cannot reside here permanently, someone has to manage it, after all." "I will have Pama manage it for me." The black-robed person let out a soft snort. "For your highness to let a shamaness from a tiny stronghold manage the vast Yue State is likely overestimating her. You saw it today yourself, she lacks any real ability to manage all of this properly." "Then you mean to say that you can?" Wang Suan smiled. "I can," the black-robed person stated firmly. "Because I am." The black-robed person ripped off his black cloak, revealing his true appearance. He was a handsome and refined-looking man. Yet the exposed skin on his lower body was pitch black and glossy, covered layer upon layer in hard, gleaming scales. The witch god's son. Chapter 205. "You are Wujun's son." Wang Suan was somewhat surprised. The diary had previously mentioned that Wujun had a son, but that was already 1,000 years ago, back when the great Qin had just fallen. "How do you know my father is named Wujun?" The man was extremely shocked. No one knew the witch's name, and he had only heard it from his elder sister. It was impossible for anyone else to know. How on earth did Wang Suan find out? This made the man understand Wang Suan less and less. Things were increasingly slipping out of his control. Before coming here, he had thought Wang Suan was just a young man in his 20s, no matter how formidable, he should have been easy to manipulate. But now, it was completely not the case. If you are his son, what is your name? Wang Suan asked. Wudu. Such a name, did your father give it to you? Wudu's expression stiffened, but he quickly steadied himself. Yeah, what about it? Is there a problem? Oh, nothing, just asking casually. Wang Suan smiled without speaking. For some reason, seeing his expression made Wudu feel extremely uncomfortable inside. Your Highness, have you considered it? Letting me manage the entire Yue State for you as benefits for both of us. Oh, that sounds quite tempting. Wang Suan wore a look of great interest. Seeing this, Wudu looked completely confident. It seemed Wang Suan was tempted. But what if this heir refuses? What will you do then? The corners of Wang Suan's mouth curled into an attractive arc as he looked at Wudu with a half-smile. Wudu's expression stiffened. He never expected Wang Suan to give such an answer. Afterwards, his expression gradually turned ugly, and his tone was no longer as amiable as before. If your Highness refuses, then half the people throughout Yue State will rise up to resist your rule, plunging the entire Yue State into the flames of war where most people here will die. By then, all you will reap is a barren wasteland. Can you afford such a consequence? Once most of the people were dead, there wouldn't be much power of faith left either. Wudu wanted to leverage this exact point to force Wang Suan into submission, and Wang Suan was indeed hit somewhat right where it hurt. Indeed, compared to Pama, as the witch god's son, you are much more suited in terms of legality and status to manage the Yue State. Joy welled up in Wudu's heart. He truly was a youngster, so easily manipulated by him. Yet I hate being threatened the most, and I refuse. Wudu's expression changed drastically. Your Highness, do you know what you're saying? The entire Yue State will flow with rivers of blood. Once the people are gone, no one will worship you anymore, understand? Wang Suan chuckled. These are your people of southern Yue. If you, the witch god's son, don't care about the life and death of your own people, why should I? If the people are gone, they're gone. At worst, we can just breed more later. Isn't it just great if everyone who opposes me dies completely? Ha ha ha. On the other hand, you're using the lives of your own people to threaten an outsider like me. Your brain must be seriously defective. You. Wudu's face had already turned as dark as an iron wok. He no longer knew what to say. Fine, since your Highness is so stubborn, then let's wait and see. Humph. With that, Wudu spat out black blood and collapsed to the ground. His body finally emitted white foam as it melted into a pool of bloody water. Regarding this, Wang Suan did not feel surprised. From the very beginning, he could see that the other party was not the real body. There wasn't a trace of spiritual soul fluctuation within the body, merely a puppet. This was also why he hadn't immediately moved to kill Wudu. What a pain. It looks like I still have to give them an unforgettable lesson to let them know fear. In a certain patch of woods 100 miles away from where Wang Suan was, Wudu opened his eyes. Wang Suan, what a pain. But in the end, the winner will definitely be me. Your ultimate fate can only be the same as my father's, becoming a non-human entity. The next day, Pama hurried in front of Wang Suan. This is bad, Your Highness. About half of the strongholds have rebelled. Led by someone claiming to be the witch god's son, they want to restore the witch god's rule. Wang Suan calmly took a sip of tea and slowly exhaled. I know, he came to find me last night. Pama was dumbfounded. And he even said you weren't qualified to rule the Yue State, wanting to help me rule in the capacity of the divine child. Pama's eyes dimmed. Indeed, if he truly is the divine child, he is indeed more suited than me, for your Highness to make such a decision. But I didn't agree to him. Pama raised her eyes to look at Wang Suan, dumbfounded. She seemed not to understand why Wang Suan wouldn't agree to such generous conditions. Could it be that your Highness did it because of me? Pama thought to herself, her heart growing somewhat chaotic. What I want is loyalty. I can see that he is disloyal. And furthermore, he threatened me. I hate nothing more than being threatened by others, so if he wants to fight, then let's fight. Wang Suan slapped the table, his overbearing aura fully displayed. Pama's expression, however, turned somewhat troubled. But your Highness, we don't have many usable warriors left on hand, and many shamans are standing on the divine child's side. Our chances of winning are very slim. Wang Suan smiled. Rest assured, I have my own methods. Just send people down to appease everyone properly. Seeing Wang Suan so calm, Pama stopped dwelling on it and turned around to arrange the work. On the other side, Wudu led a rebel army numbering tens of thousands toward Wang Suan's direction. Along the way, they didn't encounter any effective resistance, and many strongholds surrendered upon meeting them. It was simply like cutting through bamboo. The warriors and shamans under his command were all extremely happy. Before the battle started, they had all braced themselves for the bitter price of death. Never had they expected it to be so effortless. The fake god must have heard the name of the divine child, scared out of his wits, and already fled at the wind without daring to resist. It must be so. With the divine child here, our southern Yue has hope. Long live the divine child. Long live the divine child. Facing the flattery and cheers of the crowd, Wudu's mood was not as relaxed and optimistic as one might imagine. His heart was filled with even more misgivings. Judging from our conversation last night, this Prince of Zenbeizer is not an easy character to deal with. Fleeing without a fight is even less his style, otherwise, he would have agreed to let me rule the Yue State long ago. But if he just hands these territories over to me for nothing like this, how is he going to play with me afterward? No matter how strong he is, it's impossible for a single person to slaughter all 1 million of us southern Yue people. Doing so would exhaust him to death. Wudu couldn't figure it out. In his imagination, Wang Suan would definitely call upon his subordinates to stand up and engage them in a bloody battle. Although this would result in heavy casualties, they would at least have a fighting chance. Once he nibbled away at Wang Suan's territory, by then no one would be willing to risk their lives for him anymore. No matter what kind of conspiracy you have, it's useless. Victory is destined to belong to me. Wudu stopped caring. Once he fought his way right up to Wang Suan. Even if Wang Suan refused to acknowledge it, he would still be the king who actually ruled the Yue State. Wang Suan would only be able to slink away in disgrace. This was the drawback of having no army to subjugate the land. In the following days, the rebel army continued to sweep forward like broken bamboo. Everyone became more and more excited, but Wudu's mood grew heavier and heavier. Finally, in less than 10 days, the rebel army had arrived right outside the city walls, standing before Wang Suan. Chapter 206. False God. Get the hell out of our land. Give us back our faith. The rebels shouted incessantly at the foot of the mountain. Wudu looked up. To his surprise, Wang Suan was nowhere to be seen, leaving only the shamaness named Pama standing atop the wall. For some reason, a trace of unease flickered in his heart. You must be Pama. Just a shamaness from a tiny stronghold. I have no idea what Wang Suan saw in you to actually let you manage our southern Yue. What a joke. Pama's expression stiffened. Indeed, sitting in her current position brought immense pressure. After all, she was merely a humble shamaness. Everything she had achieved was entirely due to Wang Suan's favor. That doesn't require your concern, divine child, is it? Now that the witch god is gone, I advise you not to make a stubborn, futile resistance. As long as you surrender, I am certain His Highness will be magnanimous and at least guarantee you a life of glory and wealth. Before Wudu could reply, his subordinates exploded in anger. Tui, you traitor! What did you just say? The witch god is not dead. The witch god can never die. It was you lot who harmed the witch god. All believers of the false god must die. Divine child, stop wasting your breath on them. Charge up and slaughter them. Over the past 10 days, the rebel army had swelled to over 30,000 people. The clamor resounded through the forest, deafening the ears. The guards atop the stronghold wall trembled in fright, nearly dropping the spears in their hands. If they hadn't been surrounded with nowhere else to run, they would have already fled by now. Seeing the reaction of the guards on the mountain, Wudu's heart calmed down considerably. It appeared the other side was clearly unprepared. Could Wang Suan have truly given up and fled? I've been here for so long, where is Wang Suan? Pama, go call your master out right now. A trace of panic flashed across Pama's face. Because Wang Suan wasn't even inside the stronghold right now. As for where he went, she had no idea whatsoever. She only knew that 10 days ago, Wang Suan had left and told her to hold down the fort here, promising to handle everything when Wudu arrived. Yet Wudu's massive army had already reached the foot of the mountain, and Wang Suan was nowhere to be found. However, she believed Wang Suan would not simply abandon them like this. She had to stabilize the situation and stall until Wang Suan appeared. His Highness is very busy with affairs of state. You are not qualified to see him. If you have anything to say it to me. Hearing this, the rebel subordinates grew furious, clamoring for Pama to die. Wudu raised a hand, and everyone immediately fell silent. Look, if Wang Suan doesn't show his face soon, once we charge up, you're all finished. Looking at the vicious-looking rebels, and then back at her own side of the old, the weak, the sick, and the disabled, Pama felt immense pressure. She believed that if she still refused, the enemy would definitely charge up. Her meager forces could never hold them off, and death was certain. Just as despair was about to consume her, a figure appeared atop the wall. Joy lit up Pama's face. My lord. Wang Suan nodded, then looked down at Wudu. This heir has arrived. What do you have to say? Wujun laughed heartily. Your Highness the Prince's heir, my forces have now reached the city gates. Perhaps I can't do anything to you, but today, those people behind you certainly won't survive, and you are destined never to capture this Yue State. How about we each take a step back? Let me rule Yue State, and I will nominally submit to you. How does that sound? He wore an expression of absolute confidence. Oh. Wang Suan raised an eyebrow. Are you so certain this heir can't deal with you? I wouldn't dare presume, but when your Highness conquers Yue State, you certainly don't want to end up with a barren wasteland, right? Therefore, in this aspect, we each take what we need. Wujun acted as if he had Wang Suan completely in the palm of his hand. Wang Suan threw his head back and laughed loudly. Do you really think these tens of thousands of rabble can manipulate me? Today, I'll let you witness what fucking elite forces look like. Wang Suan reached his hand toward the sky and shouted loudly. Immediately, tidal wave-like roars echoed in wave after wave from all around the forest, sounding mournful and plaintive. For a moment, the rebel troops were deeply shaken, throwing their own ranks into chaos. Everyone don't panic. Wujun shouted. Yet at the same time, his own mind received a severe shock. What was going on? What on earth was that? Fortunately, the roaring finally ceased, restoring calm. At that moment, someone pointed toward the direction of the forest and screamed in terror. Wolves! It's wolves! We're surrounded by wolves. Wujun turned his head to look, and was completely frozen in shock. Sure enough, they were wolves, and not just one or two, but endless numbers of wolves stretching across all directions. Atop every single wolf rode a person clad in vine armor, looking fiercely menacing. It was actually a wolf cavalry unit. When did this cavalry appear? Why didn't we know about it? I have no idea. We clearly sent out scouts. How is there not a single shred of news? This time, the entire rebel army panicked. Many people frantically backed away, bunching up together. Though many of them were seasoned warriors, fighting humans was one thing. Fighting wolves now was simply too difficult. They were completely out of their league. The shamans were somewhat better off, possessing goo insects for ranged attacks. However, their goo insects were limited, and once the wolves closed in, they would undoubtedly become food for the beasts. Damn it! Wujun hadn't expected Wang Suan to pull out this move. Indeed, this wolf cavalry must belong to Wang Suan. Though he didn't know how Wang Suan had managed to sneak these wolf cavalry units into Yue State without them receiving a single piece of news. Yet none of that mattered anymore. The tide of offense and defense had shifted, the ones surrounded were now themselves. Furthermore, it was a pincer attack from both sides. If they weren't careful, it would end in total annihilation for all of them. Divine Child, what should we do? Someone asked. These people were truly something else. They were fine fighting easy battles, but once things turned unfavorable, they became completely unreliable. Wujun knew this all too well in his heart. Therefore, he decided to pull out his ultimate trump card. Wujun bowed toward Wang Suan. Your Highness the heir, I admit I was speaking a bit loudly just now. How about this instead? I surrender, and I am willing to become your most loyal servant, assisting Shamaness Pama in governing the entire Yue State together. I believe that with my title as the Divine Child, I can surely help your Highness manage Yue State meticulously and perfectly. This was his ultimate trick. As the son of the witch god, his submission represented the ultimate downfall of the witch god's orthodox line and signified that the faith of the witch god was bowing down before Wang Suan. He believed Wang Suan desperately needed him to set this example to effectively assist in ruling Yue State. That sounds not bad. Wang Suan touched his chin, looking thoughtful. Wujun rejoiced internally, his trump card was indeed effective. Yet this heir simply doesn't like it. Let's just fight a battle instead. Either you die or I live. Wolf soldiers, charge at them all. Wait a moment. Wujun's face changed drastically, desperately wanting to explain. Yet with a single command from Wang Suan, the surrounding wolf cavalry already began their charge toward them. A massive battle was on the verge of breaking out. Chapter 207. Oh whoa whoa. Charge and kill them. The wolf soldiers rode ferocious giant wolves, charging straight into the rebel ranks. Hold them off. Don't be afraid, the witch god is with us. Wujun shouted, trying to rally the pitiful cohesion of the rebel army. The shamans also unleashed all their goo insects, rushing forward to meet the giant wolves. In an instant, many giant wolves were completely swamped. Numerous wolf soldiers were blocked behind the swarm of goo insects. It's working. The rebels cheered at this sight, thinking these giant wolves could still be countered by goo insects. Yet their joy lasted for barely a moment before their expressions instantly shifted. How is this possible? After only a slight hindrance, the wolf soldiers instantly smashed through the encirclement of goo insects. Those very bugs were crushed to death by the giant wolves. Upon closer inspection, they realized that the fur covering the wolves had become hard and glossy. The goo insects couldn't bite through it at all, and instead were pierced by the rigid hairs, dropping in droves. Due to the heavy casualties among their goo insects, many shamans suffered severe backlash to their minds, vomiting blood and fainting on the spot. The remaining shamans hurriedly recalled their goo insects. If they were any slower, they would meet the same fate. Without the utility of goo insects, the shamans lost their combat capability. Deprived of the shaman's assistance, the rebels' situation went from bad to worse. The outermost warriors gripped their spears, their eyes filled with terror as they watched the giant wolves charge toward them. Go to hell! The warriors closed their eyes and thrust their spears forward. Clang! A tremendous force slammed into them. The spears couldn't pierce the giant wolves' pelts at all and simply snapped in half. The warriors were sent flying backward from the impact. The defense line collapsed at the very first contact. Ah! Save me! Someone save me! The wolf soldiers instantly plowed into the rebel ranks. Without even needing the riders on their backs to strike, the sheer momentum of the charge killed a massive swath of people. Those paralyzed with terror on the ground were bitten to death on the spot by the giant wolves. Some bitten warriors weren't dead yet and wailed incessantly, begging their comrades behind them for rescue. Yet not a single person dared to step forward. Everyone scrambled backward desperately, trying to put as much distance between themselves and the wolf soldiers as possible. Those who moved too slowly were even trampled to death. Those in the rear wanted to charge up the stronghold, but the defenders rained arrows down from above. Combined with Wang Suan's presence, they couldn't push up at all, leaving behind only a carpet of corpses. Besieged by wolves in front and tigers behind, Wujun watched as his force of over 30,000 plummeted by more than 5,000 in the blink of an eye, his expression turning exceedingly dark. He had considered that Wang Suan might rely on personal martial prowess to fight against their massive numbers. He never expected there to be a surprise elite force like the wolf cavalry. At this rate, defeat was genuinely possible. Yet there was no despair in Wujun's eyes. These people could die for all he cared, he didn't give a damn. He hesitated, as if making up his mind about something. Finally, he turned and shouted toward Wang Suan. Your Highness Wang Suan, are you certain you won't reconsider? A win-win benefits us both. Wang Suan replied dismissively, I don't need a win-win. I only need to win myself. Fine, Wang Suan. You forced me into this, you'll regret it. Wujun's eyes brimmed with malice as he looked up and roared, ah! Instantly, an unsettling sensation filled the air. Sensing something was amiss, Wang Suan acted decisively. His finger of profound mystery, interception, art lashed out, pointing a single finger directly at Wujun. He intended to obliterate him on the spot. Yet the white light from his finger plunged as if into a void. The radiance was simply dissolved, unable to touch Wujun's true body at all. Seeing Wang Suan make his move, a disdainful smile played at the corners of Wujun's lips. A crease formed between Wang Suan's brows as he instantly sensed that something was wrong. The space where Wujun stood no longer belonged to this world. Therefore, it was fundamentally impossible for him to strike the man. Wang Suan watched as, with the death of the rebels, invisible black wisps of energy in the air swarmed and gathered toward Wujun. He reached out to grab some, and the dark energy directly contaminated his hand, bringing a burning sensation of pain. Wang Suan's expression turned startled. His physical body had long since been impervious to all techniques. What on earth was this substance that could actually cause him pain? Vaguely, he even felt a surge of violent, tyrannical impulses rising within his heart. This was truly incredible. Knowing his current state, the closer his primordial spirit approached simplicity and returning to the natural state, the harder it was to stir ripples within him. It was as though nothing in the world could make him care. Yet this black energy was actually capable of provoking his emotions? Something was wrong. Wang Suan finally realized how troublesome this trick of Wujun's truly was. He tried every method he could, but the black energy clinging to his hand refused to shake off. In the end, he had no choice but to slice away the contaminated flesh and skin to separate himself from it. As the severed flesh dissipated, the black energy grew significantly stronger and continued flying toward Wujun. I can't let this continue. Wang Suan could already sense that within this short span of time, Wujun's aura had reached a terrifying level. Since the black energy was born from slaughter, he would simply put an end to the slaughter. He shouted directly, everyone stop fighting. Fall back. The wolf soldiers were produced by the system and incapable of disobeying orders. Every single wolf pulled back instantly. Even those who had their blades raised halfway dropped them and withdrew. The survivors shivered in lingering fear. In just this short while, their force of over 30,000 had dwindled down to barely more than 10,000. Blood stained the entire base of the mountain, and the overpowering stench of carnage was thick enough to be smelled by those atop the mountain. If left untreated, this bloody odor would linger for months without dissipating. Almost everyone present turned pale upon smelling the stench, and quite a few vomited on the spot. The only ones entirely unaffected were Wang Suan and Wudu. Wang Suan's eyes stared coldly at Wudu. Meanwhile, a look of madness surfaced on Wudu's face. Pity, just a little bit more. I thought you would kill all these people, but I never expected you to figure it out, Wudu said with a squinting smile. At this moment, he had shed all his previous scholarly grace, his entire demeanor hovering in a state of frantic derision between gloom and madness. His eyes were utterly devoid of life, anyone unaware would think he was a corpse. It doesn't matter, though, this many people is enough. Wang Suan, go to hell. Darkness descends. Boom. Black flames surged from Wudu's mouth like a tidal wave, instantly wrapping around him. Centered on him, they slowly spread across heaven and earth. 10 feet, 20 feet, and finally expanding into a giant 100 feet tall, whole body wreathed in black flames. His aura also abruptly broke through into the celestial realm. The bright midday sun was instantly plunged into darkness. What's going on? Why does it suddenly feel so cold? My chest feels so oppressed. I feel like crying. I want to die. Negative emotions bred within everyone's hearts. Some even drew their blades and began hacking incessantly at themselves. Others screamed as they leaped off the mountain, dying on the spot. Those who fared slightly better trembled all over, their eyes filled with terror. No one was spared. Even the wolf soldiers were affected, and many wolves began attacking their own handlers. Seeing this, Wang Suan directly recalled the wolf soldiers back into the system. Oh, you actually possess such a divine ability. I underestimated you. Seeing Wang Suan withdraw his wolf soldiers, Wudu understood in his heart how he had lost. It doesn't matter anymore. I have already ascended to godhood. Go and die. Boom. A massive black foot violently slammed down toward Wang Suan. Chapter 208. Save me. Divine child. It's us. We are the witch god's most loyal believers. No. Wudu's stomp was aimed at Wang Suan. However, the attack radius was simply too vast. Even the rebels were pulled into the range of the attack. It wasn't that Wudu hadn't noticed, he had seen and heard it all. Yet he simply did not care. On the contrary, their deaths could further strengthen his power. Why wouldn't he welcome that? Boom! The giant foot came crashing straight down. Even before it landed, areas affected by the overflowing aura of the foot caused plants to wither away instantly. The rebels, who had been fleeing in all directions, were instantly seized by despair, losing even the thought of running away. They thought to themselves that dying just like that wouldn't be so bad after all. Life was bitter, so why not just end it all in death? Thus, they simply stood there in a daze, raising their heads to look at the rapidly descending foot. Ha 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 ha. Wang Suan, let's see what you do now. Even though you're close to the celestial realm, you aren't there yet. As long as Wang Suan died, the entire Yue State would belong to him. In time, he could replace his father and become a true god. Ha 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 ha. Do you see this, father? Am I your pride? Bang! A muffled groan echoed out. Just as Wudu thought the dust had settled, he suddenly felt a wave of palpitations in his heart. He looked down at his feet. Why does it feel like the color has faded a bit? No, that's not right. In an instant, countless streams of white light surged in from all directions. Innumerable rays of white light ultimately coalesced beneath his feet. Boom! A massive pillar of white light erupted from beneath his feet. It tore straight through the darkness and shattered his oppressive aura. The dark giant transformed by Wudu staggered back a step. Thud! He almost fell over. Wudu struggled to steady his body and looked closely, only to find a solid figure condensed from white light appearing before him. Taking a closer look, it was none other than Wang Suan. Impossible. A hoarse voice came from Wudu's mouth. How can you wield the power of faith? Clearly I have already. The rebellion he had stirred up over the past few days was meant to shatter the new faith established by Wang Suan piece by piece, preventing Wang Suan from utilizing the power of faith to break through to the celestial realm. In that case, Wang Suan wouldn't be his match at all. Indeed, what you did prevented me from using the power of faith here, but... Wang Suan smiled calmly. Who said I only have the faith of Yue State? Could it be Xiaozhao? Wudu couldn't believe it. How is that possible? This is Yue State. How could the power of faith from Xiaozhao possibly get in here? Of course it couldn't get in at first, but what if I connected the two states? Wudu was dumbfounded. That's right. Only then did he remember that the power of faith was never restricted to the territory of a single state. Otherwise, when Great Qian conquered such vast territories, would they only be able to use the faith of a single state? Obviously not. Yet this mindset had pigeonholed him. It caused him to fail to think of it for a moment. While he had indeed wrested back the faith of most people in Yue State over these past few days, Wang Suan still controlled a portion of it, and that portion was enough to link him with Jingzhou. On Wang Suan's interface map, a portion of Jingzhou and Yue State could be connected. In other words, Wang Suan could harness the power of faith from both states. Wudu was stunned. Damn it! Watching Wang Suan continuously absorb the power of faith flying over from the distance, he knew he could not drag this out any longer. Go to hell! Wudu threw a punch directly. He wanted to annihilate Wang Suan before the remaining power of faith reached him. Bang, bang, bang. The duel between darkness and light in mid-air erupted into a magnificent spectacle. Both were celestial realm experts, controlling the power between heaven and earth to clash. In an instant, the weather shifted from a torrential downpour to a hailstorm, then to scorching sunlight, and finally whipped up a fierce gale force 8 wind. As for the people below them, they had a rather miserable time of it. One moment they had to dodge rain, the next they had to guard against hail, and finally they had to shelter from the blistering sun. Truly, when immortals fight, the bystanders suffer. Fortunately, the battle did not last very long. As time passed, the power of darkness grew weaker and weaker. Wang Suan finally figured out what this black energy was. It was malicious intent. It was the convergence of negative emotions between heaven and earth. It stood in direct opposition to faith. Faith represented purity and hope. Malicious intent and faith were two sides of the same coin in this world. Wherever there was goodness, there was evil. Goodness could achieve godhood, and evil could do the same. Once contaminated with malicious intent, it would not be extinguished until it burned you to ashes, unless resolved using goodness. Therefore, Wang Suan was able to use the power of faith to counter Wudu. Wudu's malicious intent was limited and he was simply no match for Wang Suan, because Wang Suan had the replenishment of faith from the entire Jingzhou. Meanwhile, Wudu only had the malicious intent generated by the deaths of a mere tens of thousands of people just now. No, at this rate, I'm going to be finished. Malice flared up in Wudu, and he stomped his foot toward the rebels on the ground. Killing them would allow him to replenish his malicious intent. Save me, divine child, what are you trying to do? Even the most foolish person understood now. Time and time again, the divine child wanted them dead. Even the divine child had abandoned them. Why? Was their persistence even right? The feeling of being abandoned once more filled their hearts with despair. Yet Wang Suan would certainly not let him succeed. Taking advantage of Wudu's lack of preparedness, he charged straight into the body of the black giant. Boom! Wang Suan burst out, grabbing Wudu by the neck. The black malicious intent followed like a shadow, frantically eroding Wang Suan through Wudu. However, the white faith radiating from Wang Suan continuously annihilated the black flames. After a moment, the black giant collapsed and dissipated into nothingness. The rebels, who had already resigned themselves to waiting for death, looked up and saw that the black giant was gone. Turning their heads, they saw Wang Suan landing on the ground while dragging their divine child, Wudu. Divine child Wudu wore a dejected expression, clearly devoid of any remaining strength to fight back. Do you want to die, or will you surrender? Having been through this battle, the rebels also understood that they had been used as pawns by the divine child, and all thoughts of rebellion vanished. Thus, they knelt down one after another. We all submit, please spare us, your highness. Wang Suan nodded in satisfaction, turning to Pama to say, I'll leave these people to you. With that, he turned and left, taking Wudu with him. Wang Suan brought Wudu into a room. He tossed him directly onto the floor. Why did you bring me here? You might as well just kill me. Though he had already lost, Wudu remained entirely unfazed. This air will naturally kill you, but before you die, there is a matter where I need your help. Wudu thought he had misheard and laughed in anger. Do you think I would help you? We are mortal enemies, after all. Wang Suan smiled calmly. That name of yours, it probably wasn't chosen personally by your father, was it? Wudu's expression changed as if his reverse scale had been touched. Nonsense. My name was given to me by my father, my aunt told me so. Oh, is that so? Wang Suan raised an eyebrow. Yet your father didn't say it like that. Chapter 209. What do you mean? What on earth do you know? What do you even understand? Wudu's expression looked rather ugly. After you were born, did your father come to visit you often? Wang Suan countered. So what? My father had a million things on his plate. As the king of the entire Yue State, he had countless matters to handle and naturally had no way to stay by my side. Wudu retorted. Stop deceiving yourself. Here, this is your father's journal, and you should certainly recognize these characters. Wang Suan tossed out the witch's diary directly. A diary. Wudu looked full of suspicion, but he still reached out and picked up the journal. After flipping through it, his pupils dilated, revealing the turbulent storm within his heart. This was his father's handwriting. When he was 7 years old, he had gone to the temple to find his father. At that time, his father wasn't there, and he had seen characters just like these unreadable ones written on paper. At a single glance, the handwriting was clearly written by his father. These were witch scripts, the written language invented by his father. Only the most devout shamans were allowed to learn the meaning of these characters, as it was the method of communication between shamans and the witch god, his father. Later on, his aunt had taught him the meanings of these symbols, which was why he could understand them. Wujun read through it line by line, moving very quickly. When he saw that his mother had died in difficult labor giving birth to him, and that his father loathed him because of it, his heart shattered completely. Most importantly, his father had truly never given him a name. So where had his name come from? No, this isn't true. You're lying to me. Wujun wept. It was the first time he had ever cried. Back when he got lost as a child and was trapped in the mountains for 3 days and nights, almost dying, he hadn't cried. Because he was the son of the king of Yue and the progeny of the witch god. Therefore, he could not cry. His father rarely met with him, but it didn't matter, he understood. He believed this was his father's test for him. Both his aunt and elder sister had said as much, encouraging him this way. Thus, he had sworn to achieve absolute excellence in everything he did. All of it was just to win his father's acknowledgement, and eventually, his father became the witch god while he became the divine envoy. Wujun had been extremely happy and proud. He thought he had finally earned his father's approval. Therefore, when the witch fell, he wanted to avenge his father. He intended to pick up his father's unfulfilled ambition, become the king of the entire Yue State, and unify the world. But he discovered that he was wrong. His father never wanted to unify the world at all. He simply wanted to resurrect his mother, while he himself was never acknowledged by his father in the first place. Or rather, his father had never cared about him at all. No, none of this is true. Wujun fell to his knees, struggling to hold back his tears. Yet the tears still flowed uncontrollably from the corners of his eyes. Because he understood that all these years of perseverance, all these years of ideals, and all these years spent trying to gain his father's approval were nothing more than a joke. That's right, he was just a joke. Ha 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 ha. Wujun suddenly burst out laughing. I am nothing but a joke. Ha 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 ha. Wujun took a sip of tea, quietly watching Wujun lose his mind. After a while, Wujun finally stopped. His complexion grew calm. Speak, what is it that you want to know? Wujun wore a half smile as he asked, Oh, didn't you say we were mortal enemies? Enemies. Wujun let out a self-deprecating laugh. We originally were, but now, I don't even know anymore. His father had never cared about him in the slightest. Therefore, everything up until now had just been his own unrequited delusions. His revenge against Wujun was the exact same. If that was the case, the reason for revenge no longer existed, so how could they still be considered enemies? Perhaps, maybe, I should even be thanking you. Wujun nodded. Earlier, your father, the witch, directly killed 11 great shamans, then handed the origin of the heavenly Tao over to me before telling me a single sentence. The more you gain, the more you lose. Do you know what that means? Wujun muttered to himself, the more you gain, the more you lose. He furrowed his brows, sinking deep into thought. Seeing this, Wujun understood that although the other man was the witch's son, he likely didn't know everything. It seems I took things for granted. Even though you're the witch's son, judging from the descriptions in the journal, your father probably never told you about these matters. Wujun wasn't particularly disappointed. He had simply wanted to test if there was a chance to extract information from Wujun. If there wasn't, that was entirely normal. Wait. Wujun's eyes narrowed. Deep in my memories, I seem to have an impression, someone once said that exact phrase. Wujun closed his eyes in deep contemplation. After a long moment, he snapped his eyes open. That's right, my aunt said it. Wujun straightened his posture. What did your aunt say? Wujun's thoughts drifted back to the past. It's been too long. I don't remember very clearly, but I recalled it back when I was still small. My aunt came back from my father's side one day muttering, the more you gain, the more you lose. Do you still not understand? Is cultivation really that much more important? Just how much more do you want to lose? Is there anything else? Wujun shook his head. That's all I know. My aunt just dropped that single mention. What about your aunt? Wujun asked. Wujun wore a grief-stricken expression. The black-robed person who died that day was my aunt. Wujun only then remembered that the black-robed individual had called herself Little Fish that day, which, according to the journal, should indeed be Wujun's wife's younger sister and Wujun's aunt. Since she's dead, who else can I ask? Ah, that's right. There's also this. Wang Suan flipped the journal to the very end and showed it to Wudu. Take a look. Do you recognize these characters? Seeing the chaotic and messy handwriting, Wudu smiled bitterly. What is this? How could I possibly, Just when he thought he couldn't make heads or tails of them, those characters seemed to spring to life, instantly flooding into his mind. Wudu let out a miserable scream and then passed out cold. But he woke up again very quickly. The very first thing he did upon opening his eyes was laugh. Ha 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 ha. So that's how it is. Ha 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 ha. It's all fake, it's all fake. Ha 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 ha. Father, you really are a giant fool, you were tricked. Why? Gibberish continuously tumbled out of his mouth, making him look completely insane. What do you mean? Wudu, make yourself clear. Wang Suan demanded. Wudu suddenly fell quiet, just staring at Wang Suan before a bitter smile crept onto the corners of his lips. So that's how it is. It's all fake, Wang Suan, don't let yourself be fooled by the heavenly Tao, or you will lose so many things. The heavenly Tao? Tricked? How could the heavenly Tao trick anyone? Lose what things? Why did everyone love acting like riddle speakers, damn it? What do you mean? Why would the heavenly Tao trick people? Explain your. Before he could finish his words, Wudu suddenly vomited a mouthful of fresh blood, his eyes growing dull and devoid of light. It's too late, the backlash has arrived. Perhaps from the very beginning, the path we chose was entirely wrong. When he was defeated by Wang Suan earlier using malicious intent, he had already suffered the backlash of that dark energy. Previously, he had simply been forcing himself to endure. Now, he had finally reached his breaking point. Before he could finish speaking, his physical body rapidly decayed, ultimately turning into a pool of foul-smelling blood. Ding! Slain the child of destiny Wudu, rewarded with 500 million points and acquired a wisp of heavenly Tao origin. Indeed, Wudu was also a child of destiny. He also possessed the origin of the heavenly Tao, which was why he could use malicious intent to break through into the celestial realm. Although he had obtained massive rewards, Wang Suan's expression was chillingly dark. Because of Wudu's death, the clues had been broken once again. Chapter 210. It was June, right in the middle of the rainy season. Particularly in the coastal south, affected by monsoons, it rained constantly. The moment Wang Suan crossed into Yue State, the sky began to pour. Bee-sized raindrops fell upon him, parting on their own without staining him even a fraction. He strolled leisurely toward the direction of Jianling Prefecture. He had left all the affairs of Yue State to Pama to handle. At the same time, he had entrusted her with the command of the 20,000 wolf soldiers to prevent anyone from acting secretly behind the scenes. Now, having gathered the faith of both Yue State and Jingzhou, Wang Suan felt his realm growing increasingly stable. The floating sensation brought by the origin of the heavenly Tao had largely vanished. Through these days of cultivation, combined with Wudu's final words, Wang Suan developed a few hypotheses. If the heavenly Tao tricks people, does that mean fusing with its origin carries side effects? Is this side effect the floating sensation I'm currently feeling? Meanwhile, the power of faith helps me dissolve this floating sensation. So does an excess of the heavenly Tao's origin require a greater amount of faith to achieve balance? Naturally, this was merely a guess based on his personal sensations, but he felt it was likely very close to the truth. Even knowing that possessing too much of the heavenly Tao's origin would cause problems, he still had to fuse with it without hesitation. This was for his own sake. Cold Moon had warned him that if he did not increase his strength against that person's overwhelming might, he simply wouldn't stand a chance. The people he cared about would all be killed by that entity. Therefore, he had to become powerful. Lost in thought, night fell. Wang Suan disliked traveling by night, and upon spotting a dilapidated earth god temple not far away, he walked directly toward it, planning to make do for the night. Once he drew closer and perceived the situation inside the temple, a faint smile surfaced at the corners of his lips. The moment he stepped 1 foot across the temple threshold. Hey! A piercing sound of a weapon cutting through the air rang out in the darkness. A club swung straight toward Wang Suan's head. Yet when the club was a mere inch away from him, it could advance no further. Wang Suan gently caught the wooden club with a single hand, rendering it completely immobile. Let go of me! A sharp cry rang out. Wang Suan twisted his palm, directly snatching the wooden club away. Clearly not expecting Wang Suan to possess such immense strength, the attacker stumbled and fell heavily to the ground. Ouch! In the dimness, golden light flashed in Wang Suan's eyes, revealing his assailant to be a pretty young girl, looking no more than 12 or 13 years old. She sat on the ground, frantically rubbing her bruised backside. Wang Suan was not one to tenderly cherish jade. Attacking him meant death. He instantly drew his Grand Liang Dragon Sparrow, intending to cleave her in two with a single slash. At that moment, a light flickered on. An old man and an old woman emerged holding a lamp. "Spare our lives, young hero. It's all a misunderstanding." They threw themselves in front of Wang Suan, dropping to their knees and kowtowing for mercy. "A misunderstanding? You people tried to kill me just now," the old man said with a helpless expression. "You wouldn't understand, young hero. We are natives of Jinan Prefecture in Yue State. Recently, Jingzhou and Yue State have been at war, and we fled here as refugees. Mistaking you for bandits, our young daughter acted out of sudden panic and struck at you. She had absolutely no intention of taking your life. We begged the young hero to show mercy." Following that, they banged their heads on the ground a few more times, even dragging the girl over to kowtow alongside them. Wang Suan looked at the pitiful expression of the young girl, seemingly reminded of something. "Fine, let this matter rest here." He put away his blade, sat down in a clean corner, and began starting a fire, ignoring the family of three. The old people did not dare to get too close to Wang Suan either, seating themselves far away for fear of provoking him again. Having walked all day, Wang Suan felt somewhat hungry. He retrieved a roasted chicken from his spatial storage, courtesy of Tianxiang Pavilion, and began to eat. He had bought it back in the capital and, because he enjoyed it, specifically stored a large quantity in his spatial inventory. Taken out now, it was still piping hot and filled with an appetizing aroma. As Wang Suan ate, he heard a strange sound. Glancing over, he saw the family of three from across the room staring at him with wide eyes, continuously swallowing saliva. The young girl in particular looked as though her eyes might pop right out of her head, her stomach growling nonstop. Wang Suan even overheard them whispering to each other. "Dad, I'm hungry. Can we go buy some food from that person?" "My child, just bear with it. Wealth should not be flaunted. If the other person harbors ill intentions, we're done for." "That's right, Junjun, listen to your father. Once we settle down, you can eat as many roasted chickens as you want." "I know, father. I'll listen to you," the girl said weakly. "Good girl, go to sleep. You won't feel hungry once you wake up." Wang Suan chuckled softly and ignored them. After eating his fill, he casually tossed the leftover bones aside and lay down to sleep. After some unknown period of time, a faint rustling noise woke Wang Suan. Opening his eyes, he discovered that the young girl had crawled over to his side, picking up the chicken bones he had left behind and frantically sucking on the remaining scraps of meat. The sound he heard earlier had been produced by her eating. The young girl, engrossed in gnawing away, suddenly sensed something amiss. She looked up and found that Wang Suan had woken up and was staring right at her. The two of them locked eyes in mutual shock, freezing in place for a moment. Just as the girl panicked, unsure of how to explain herself, Wang Suan conjured a fresh roasted chicken out of thin air and handed it to her. "Don't eat the bones, it's unhygienic. There's a new one here." The young girl dazedly accepted the roasted chicken from Wang Suan's hands. It wasn't until the rich fragrance of the chicken hit her nose that she snapped out of her daze. She took a tentative bite, and her eyes lit up instantly. Then she began devouring it ravenously. Witnessing this, a slight smile touched the corners of Wang Suan's lips. Yet it quickly subsided into calm. He turned over and went back to sleep. When the girl finished eating her fill and looked up, Wang Suan was already fast asleep. So she whispered, "Thank you." Afterward, she tucked the remaining half of the roasted chicken into her tunic to bring back, intending to save it for her parents when they woke up. The next day, Wang Suan woke up early and departed, paying no mind to the family of three still fast asleep. He continued his leisurely stroll, heading in the direction of Jianling Prefecture. Yet barely 10 miles out, he encountered a group of armored cavalry galloping toward him on horseback. Wang Suan ignored them and stepped aside to clear the path. However, a small detachment of about a dozen riders broke away from the main group and blocked his way. "Hey, stop right there." Wang Suan paid them no mind and kept walking. The speaker had never encountered someone who showed him such utter disrespect and instantly flew into a rage. "Damn it! You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeiture. Go to hell." He brought his blade down in a direct slash. To be continued. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an update. Check out the playlist to catch up on the rest of the series. I'll be back with the next part soon, stay tuned.